Going on to page number 78, silence, 9:20 a.m. McCleary, I'm going to. Evans, he's not going, he's gonna stay here. McCleary, I don't know about that. Stephens, Mr. Jackson's given me strict instructions to. Evans, how am I supposed to concentrate on my exam with someone breathing down my neck? Christ, sorry sir, I didn't mean that. The governor reached for the phone. Jackson, oh good, get Stephens out of that cell, will you? I think we are perhaps overdoing things. As you wish, sir. Now, because Stephen was already standing just right on his head, and because they were doubting that something again might happen and he might just try to trouble this man, the invigilator, and he might just run away. So the governor said that you should get Jackson out of the cell so that they would actually probably just simply give the examination. So the governor heard the exchanges in the cell, heard the door clang once more, and heard McCleary announce that the examination had begun at last. It was 9:25 a.m. and there was a great calm. 9:40 a.m. the examinations board rang through, and the assistant secretary with special responsibility for modern languages asked to speak to the governor. The examination had already started, no doubt, a quarter of an hour ago. Yes, well, there was a correction slip which some fool had forgotten to place in the examination package. Very brief, could the governor please? Now it is very important just to understand. Now there was a correction slip which was forgotten to be inserted in that envelope. So now it was a call from the board, the central board examination, and they wanted to speak to governor so they could actually deliver what exactly the correction slip was all about. Yes, of course, I'll put you straight through to Mr. Jackson in D wing. Hold the line a minute. Was this a sort of thing the governor had feared? Was the phone call a fake, some signal, some secret message? But he could check on that immediately. He dialed the number of the examination board but heard only the staccato bleeps of the line engaged. But then the line was engaged, wasn't it? Yes, not very intelligent that. So governor was doubting that he might this might be just a fake call or probably some signal just to alarm Evans, and they were actually keeping a good eye on everything. So but then what governor did, out of his wit, he actually dialed the same number, the central board examination number, and the engaged beep was going on. So he was kind of satisfied with it. 2 minutes later, he heard some whispered communications in the cell, and then McCleary's broad squaw's voice. Will you please stop writing a wee while, Mr. Evans, and listen carefully. Candidates offering German 0211 should note the following correction. On page 3, now moving on to the next page, on page 315, the fourth word should read goldenen, not goldin, and the whole phrase will therefore read zum goldenen launen and not zum goldenen laun. I will repeat that. The governor listened and smiled. He had taken German in the 6th form himself and remembered all about the agreements of the adjectives, and so did McCleary. By the sound of things, for the minister's pronunciation was most impressive. But what about Evans? He probably didn't know what an adjective was. So now what was it? It was just a normal correction which was done, and he announced the exact correction, and he could actually pronounce it in a nicer way because he himself had taken German in 6th standard and he remembered each and everything. The phone rang again, the magistrate's court. They needed a prison van and a couple of prison officers' remand case, and within 2 minutes the governor was wondering whether that could be a hoax. He told himself not to be so silly. His imagination was beginning to run riot. So again the phone rang, and they wanted some couple of prison officers. It was the magistrate courts, and they needed prison van and the couple of prison officers because it was a remand case. So now the governor was again wondering that it could be a hoax or probably it could be just a fake thing. Evans. For the first quarter of an hour, Stephens had dutifully peered through the peephole at intervals of 1 minute or so, and after that, every 2 minutes. At 10:45 a.m., everything was still all right as he looked through the peephole once more. It took 4 or 5 seconds, no more. What was the point? It was always more or less the same. Evans, his pen between his lips, sat staring straight in front of him towards the door, seeking, it seemed, some sorely needed inspiration from somewhere, and opposite him, McCleary, seated slightly asked from the table. Now, his face in semi-profile, his hair, as Stephens had noticed earlier, amateurishly clipped pretty closely to the scalp, his eyes behind the pebble lenses, peering short-sightedly at the church times, his right index finger hooked beneath the narrow clerical collar, and the fingers of the left hand and the nails meticulously manicured, slowly stroking the short black beard. At 10:50 a.m., the receiver cracked to life of the governors realized he had almost forgotten Evans for a few minutes. Evans, please, sir, a whisper. Evans, please, sir, louder. Would you mind if I put a blanket around me? So now, Stephen was actually keeping a very dutifully eye on him, and he was just peeping inside again and again after few seconds, just to keep an eye on both of them, especially on Evans. And there was no such change, and everything was going perfectly fine. So now Evans asked that, and he whispers that, can I just put the blanket around me? And that's all, and we'll continue in the next live class.